All right, today is about the journey within. And if you didn't get to hear John Boyle's meditation, I hope you do. It was almost like we were one mind, John. We didn't talk to each other, but yeah. Yep. So as I've said a couple times, our annual theme, if you haven't gotten used to it yet, is engaging, like shaking a hand, embracing, like giving somebody a hug, and embodying, as in allowing it to be embodied in us, the divine. The February book was As We Think, So We Are, and it was originally 3 books written by James Allen, who was born in 1864 and died in 1912. Ruth Miller, who happens to be at the Portland Unity or CSL, actually edited the book for Contemporary Times. And you can start to see just by reading this book and then having Ruth bring it together, the essence of the greater understanding that was moving and expressing and expanding in the time that James Allen was alive. And it was mentioned that he was not necessarily well known, but even after his death, the books continued to reverberate with lots of people and continue to be sold today. And then the new book, which I don't think we have yet. We do have. Great. Thank you. I was going to try to grab one and I got just sidetracked. The new book is The Art of Contemplation, A Gentle Path to Wholeness and Prosperity. And with that book, we will learn contemplation, which he briefly describes as pausing, pivoting, and merging. Turning inwards to go beyond the mind itself, the ego that wants to know, and turning towards the mystery. The topic today, the journey within, came to me from many different directions. It was like, yes, I'm getting the message. Yes, I affirm, I hear the message. With lots of conversations with people, reading many different books, reading this book, reading Freedom from the Mind, reading The Physics of Consciousness, which Reverend Connie talked about last Sunday, and also an experience in the float spa. Thank you, Amy Roberts, for that opportunity. For those of you that haven't been there, it's floating in 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt in a float pod by yourself, lights off, no music, and basically sensory, I'll say deprivation, but not in a way like being deprived, but just being. And, when I first got in, it was sort of like, okay, wait, where am I? What am I doing? Because in each moment we're used to, the identity of where we are and things we're feeling and the roles we're playing, the things we got to do. And to just take that time was, again, opening and freeing. But really, where is that? That is called the True Rest Float Spa near Beatniks on 8th Street. Happy to talk to you more. I want to ask you, how do you measure how well you know yourself? I'm talking beyond your favorite foods and colors and worldly preferences. When you take away your ego, those roles, those identities, how well do you know yourself? You mean there's something beyond? Beyond the worldly aspects? And the defining labels that we have used and the things we should be doing. I was talking to Hugh about being retired, and in being retired, all our life was like, gotta do this, gotta do that, whether it was family or job. There's a little more like, oh yeah, I can just be and not feel guilty that I'm not doing. Driving myself to the next gotta finish, gotta do. So how well do you know yourself? How comfortable are you when you release all that you know? Know. We build our safety around knowing. So as you might have surmised, nobody can really measure how well we know ourselves. I mean, you could look at somebody meditating, but you would have no idea whether they have wild, out of control thoughts happening or are peacefully and having peaceful, soulful thoughts, right? I don't have a temperature gauge. Where are you? We don't have thought counters. We don't have thought containers to measure those daily thoughts. Yet. Good point. I like that. Yet. Like, did the last book change your thoughts based on what you read? Maybe so, maybe not. Now, someone can tell you about an experience like the float spa or other aspects. Or you can have the experience yourself. Which one will stick with you better? And how come? Lived, and what does that mean? Touches all your senses. When you're listening to somebody talking about an experience, there's hearing going on, listening, things happening in your mind. But when you experience something, you've got that vibration, the hearing, the smelling, the seeing, the observing, the feeling. Again, there's feeling of touch, and there's feeling like I get a vibe in the room. So most of us say it's having the experience. There is a quote by D.T. Suzuki, who says, "Unless it grows out of yourself, no knowledge is really yours. It's only borrowed plumage." So today I can talk and teach about the journey within. But really you would benefit most by an experience of taking yourself on the journey within. You must lead yourself to new spiritual experiences. Don't let the ego say, "Oh, I already know that. Oh, I already know meditation. Oh, I already know mindfulness. Oh, I already know," whatever it is. That's the ego speaking. When we go within and become more aware, and by the way, John, I took this from the men's slides. Thank you for sharing that with me. Awareness builds consciousness. When you become aware of who you are, what you are, and why you are, your consciousness expands in a way that your being here has deep purpose and meaning. The book, The Physics of Consciousness, led me into a deeper inquiry into myself. The book was describing through many pages in various ways that the journey within has many dimensions. And to really know ourselves, we need to be experiencing all of those dimensions. Not just superficially and egoically, but literally deeply. So you can think of it like physical being the earth and our physical being, water being our imagination, fire being our intention and will, and air being our mental dimensions. Most people would probably say physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. How do we bring ourselves into the experiences of those dimensions for ourselves? The ultimate connection to the divine has always been closer than you imagined. And I know that the kingdom of God is within you, or people saying the divine is closer than you can imagine, you start searching for something that, what don't I know? What don't I know? And the truth is that you really already know it, but you haven't put it maybe within context. Meaning, I'll just use an example. You've been here for probably close to at least 40 minutes. There's lots that's been happening. Have you been aware of every single thing? Of all the sounds? Of all the thoughts? Of all the feelings? We can't possibly, right? Because we are limited. And we tend to focus on each of those one at a time. Growing our awareness of being inside our body and outside of our body, so that we may have the direct cognition or the direct experience of consciousness, awareness, that we're not our body, we are consciousness. This became really clear to me when I read a book a long time ago that says, there are people who have had to have limbs amputated. Has that changed who they are? Well, maybe the experience they went through might have changed things for them, but they still are who they are. And you can do that with the rest of the body. Of course, every 7 years we have all new cells, but we still are who we are. And as long as we remain identified as the individual in this physical body only with all the labels, then we cannot know the true nature of ourselves and our existence. So there appears to be lots of chaos on the outside, which is really a call for us to turn within to the peace that is inside us. We can't control the world, but we can control how we respond. Storms come and go. A beautiful day yesterday. I was back on my mountain bike. Yay! In beautiful Bidwell Park, right where it originally ended. How do we maintain the peace and the balance? We tend to do a lot of overthinking without just being in the experience of something. Can we be in the presence of an experience and observe without judgment? Look at the feelings, what you're broadcasting. So the journey within is about tuning in. I know everybody's heard the name Nikola Tesla, yes? I looked him up to find out his life span, and he was born in 1856 and died in 1943. Of course, we know he was an inventor, an engineer, a physicist, and a futurist. And somebody, I love this part, it just sang to my soul, like, you're talking to me. Somebody said, he's the greatest geek who ever lived. I don't know, Einstein probably go up there too. So Nikola said, I am just a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated the secrets of this core, but I know it exists. And I would add, you know it exists, but on occasion you know it exists? Or are you constantly aware that it's always existing? That each experience you're having is an experience of the divine? The journey within requires us to pay attention, to spend time learning, and to be open and aware of our inner being. And I'm cautious about words because inner being, yes, pay attention to what we're hearing, feeling, seeing, and thinking. But also the inner being of just being aware, which is not in your body. I didn't look up any science that would go this direction, but we know we're not a soul in a body, we are a body and a soul. What is that experience for you? Turning into the many dimensions and establishing, I'll call it a spiritual base. Now, of course, again, everything is always changing. So how do you get comfortable with things that are always changing? Well, that's part of the challenge. Isn't that true of today's politics? Oh, yeah. Can you establish a spiritual base by doing a journey within to know the I am consciousness? Not the ego, I'm strong, but the ego is I know my strength. I mean, the consciousness that knows where your strength comes from, the source of that. Yes, the God confidence, very good. I exist. I am present. I am present. I exist. I experience. What tends to happen with the journey within is I like to use the metaphor of a mountain. In our higher consciousness and awareness, when you're at the top of a mountain, you've got the big view and you see clearly and you're not distracted by the little things in the valley. Your view, your perspective, the clarity, the higher consciousness has a different view than the valley where the worldly ego exists in all the details. Here, let me tell you a story. I'll tell you what happened to me. And then what happened to me really caused me to... And then I had things that was going on. Rise up. Rise up into higher consciousness. And then I said, well, if I have a mountaintop and a valley, what's the mid-mountain? In and out of both views. We need to lift our attention. We can be very attracted by the news, very attracted by the drama and the trauma, very, as the Buddhists would say, we can be very attached to things that are going on in our life and not let up. And that's really when the call is to take the journey within, to get the bigger view. Now, of course, that doesn't mean all the answers show up. Sometimes we have experiences that happened a year ago and something else happens now, and now the pieces are put together. I remember when I was bullied out of Chico State, I know I was very attached because I loved my job. But then I ended up going to the chancellor's office and I was like, ooh, I even love this job more. But I still didn't want to let go of the fact that I was bullied out, darn it. It wasn't out of my own control. But it was better for me. Release, forgiveness. My soul was moving me forward. When the mind is transcended through spiritual awareness of being consciousness, it is no longer contaminated by the ego. You really can't reason with the ego. The ego wants you to understand, oh, I'm a spiritual being and I'm getting more spiritual. And I'm getting more spiritual because I'm having all these spiritual experiences. There goes the ego. You can't reason with the ego. We do need to have the experience to transcend the mind. Higher consciousness has a different vibration. And you can just study Jesus and Buddha and you name all the sages, and you know that their essence was so different that people noticed it, experienced it, really. So when we talk about 3 dimensions, 3D, we're usually talking about width, height, length, space. Our body lives in the 3rd dimension. And our body lives in the 4th dimension, which includes time. And 3D is, yes, our body, but the 4th dimension would mean as I move my hand from the top of my head over to the right of my body, that each moment in time, there's height, width, length, but I'm in a different space based on time. So that's the 4th dimension. What's the 5th dimension? Everything, everywhere, all at once. They're calling it the spiritual dimension. And it's used in spiritual context to describe a heightened state of consciousness beyond the limitations of the physical world, characterized by deep understanding, interconnectedness, and a higher level of awareness. That's what we want to practice. So the journey within. No one can really lead you into it. The journey within is led by you experientially. It does require your time, your intention, as in choose and decide this is where you're going to practice and what you're going to practice. Your attention, which means some quiet time with yourself, whether that's meditation, mindfulness, a walk, listening to music, time with yourself. So we're here at CSL Chico to support you on this spiritual journey within. To do what? Engage, embrace, and embody the divine, which is growth. We are here to provide a spiritual community with spiritual tools and services, whether it's meditation, which you experience in the service and before service. There's mindfulness. There's a flyer out there, somebody who I know is leading mindfulness sessions. Practitioners and ministers are here for affirmative prayer to support whether it's going through a rough time or whether it's putting out your intention to take your spiritual journey deeper. We have activities here for community and connection so that we can reflect to one another where we are in our journey. And of course, we offer education to learn the science of mind, spiritual principles, reading books as we're reading together in the bookmarks so that we can have conversations to take ourselves deeper. But the actual practice of being and experiencing your inner journey is up to you and your willingness to be open, to be more aware, and to be tuned inward. In other words, this lesson is just your invitation to go deeper into that journey inward. I bless you on that journey. I'm with you, support you, and love you on that journey. Namaste.